like a few weeks ago too. I still haven't quite started my job yet, but I did get my vaccine titers and my TB test, so marching ever onward toward that. Oh, thank you, Kayla's lovely. Welcome back to you too. It's good to see you again. Thank you for coming. Today we're going to do the water signs, so that's going to be Cancer, Pisces, and Scorpio. The deck that I'm going to use this week is the Jack-o'-lantern tarot. I really love the imagery in this deck. Oh, good. I'm glad you like that deck also. I really love the artwork, and I love jack-o'-lanterns. So, to clear the space, I'm going to be using my Florida water. Really douse the space. So now I'm going to shuffle cards, and I'm going to get started with the astrological sign of Cancer. So Cancer, if you would like, go ahead and set your intention for the reading. Any issues that you would like to address during this reading, just allow those things to rise up to the forefront of your thoughts and wait there patiently. And if those are things that you find stressful or that they're causing you anxiety, I invite you to gently breathe through that energy. As you inhale, draw in the divine white light of Source. And then as you exhale, just release all of it back to Source, and it will be transmuted. Yes, wonderful. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, Cancer. So I'll go ahead and write down your timestamp. Okay. And we can begin. So, starting here in the past, we have the Hermit card. And the Hermit, this card is associated with the sign of Virgo in the major arcana. This card is also showing up in the reverse. There's a lot of really cool details on this card. We have this skeleton, which is high up in the sky, almost like a constellation, and is turning their face away and covering the face with the arms. We have this little pumpkin over here, of course, and that shape echoed by this mountain peak over here. Now, the Hermit is about enlightenment, seeking enlightenment, eschewing contact with other people. And it could be that in the past you had taken part in some kind of sabbatical, that you had removed yourself from public for some time in order to evaluate things more clearly for yourself, related to your higher power, perhaps, but also related to the ways of the universe. Only emerging somewhat to shed that light for others. But now, because this card is in the reverse, I can see that you have come out of this period of withdrawal, heading into the current situation. And here in the current situation, we have a very Cancerian card coming out with this Two of Cups. I have had somewhat of a frog in my throat. I'm not entirely sure why, so I apologize if my voice is a little bit scratchy. The Two of Cups can relate to Cancerian energies because we're talking about reciprocity between two people at an emotional level. This can be romance. It can also be a good friend. Could be another loved one that you're connecting with emotionally on a one-to-one basis. And we have, of course, above this, the caduceus. We have this winged lion's head. So can also have to do with creativity, partnerships for the purpose of creativity, or of creation itself, having children, things like that. So this card showing up for you in the current situation, Cancer. You could have a very close connection with another person. And this, of course, would require you to come out of isolation. Crossing that Two of Cups, we have the Strength card, which is Leo's card in the major arcana. So this person that you're connecting with could have Leo in their chart prominently. But the Strength card here could also be talking about the strength that is required to connect with people on a one-to-one level like this. It's not easy to communicate with others. You can be very psychic and still have a hard time expressing yourself properly. And of course, there's always room for miscommunications to occur in relationships that can make things difficult, whether that's a friendship, a marriage, etc. We do have a lot of lion energy showing up here. So, of course, as I mentioned, the Strength card is Leo's card in the major arcana. But then remember also on this Two of Cups, we have that winged lion's head that is kind of attached to that caduceus there, and the communion of those two snakes. What am I getting from these cards? Opening up yourself to others. And not just opening yourself to this one other person, but kind of seeking out situations where you have that one-to-one connection with people, such that you're not just seeking out companionship in an Ace of Cups kind of way where there's an emotional renewal going on, but rather that you are seeking out direct correlation with others. So now we're going to go down to the MMCLI, and most of you will be aware that the MMCLI is directly below the card of the significator that we just covered, and is all of the origins and foundations of the current situation that will be contributing to what we look at in the goal or destiny when we go above the significator and look at the midheaven position. So in the MMCLI, we do have the Two of Swords coming out. So many spooky skeletons in this deck. I love it. Oh, hi, Savannah. Thank you for coming. It's good to see you. So the Two of Swords here is a card about choice. We do have two swords that are quite similar. So you could have two situations, two paths to choose from that could be quite similar, and perhaps even the outcomes could be quite similar. Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for coming. But that you have to evaluate which one you are going to choose. Now, in order to do that, this person is going to need to take off that blindfold. You can see the hilts of the swords. They're very similar. They could be the same, just oriented in different directions. But she's not going to be able to choose one over the other until she's able to remove that blindfold. That's going to require putting one of the swords down temporarily. So it could even be a situation where you kind of juggle the two options for a little bit until you're able to see them fully and accurately. And that is in the upright in the current position. So that is going to provide the foundation for what we're looking at in the goal or destiny, the outcome of this choice that you make. Here, we're going to be looking at your perspective on the current situation. And we have the Four of Cups. So you might even see this not as two things that you can choose between, but rather that you have multiple options to evaluate. The Four of Cups is kind of a waiting process. And we do see this vulture kind of perched on this person's shoulder. Maybe these are cups of poison in this deck. But that's not going to be an accurate reflection of most people's situations. For most people, the Four of Cups is a card of waiting, but not just waiting, evaluating some different options that you have, playing through some different scenarios on the VCR of your mind until your choice is made. But we do get the idea that at some point a decision will have to be made, because we do have this vulture hanging around, waiting for that choice. So from an outside person's perspective, looking in, we have the Nine of Wands. So perhaps this choice is about companionship, because we did have that Two of Cups coming out. We had the Strength card coming out with it. That there has to be the strength there to make some kind of definitive choice sometimes in these relationships. Maybe there's an opportunity to go and do something with this person that you'd like to be very close friends with. Maybe it's an opportunity to move in with that person. Maybe you're picking out a roommate. It could be a love relationship, and somebody is asking for more of a commitment. And from the outside looking in, the person sees you as being very guarded. And that would make sense, because at a point in the not too distant past, you probably were very guarded. And a lot of your emotions are probably still not fully unpacked from the move. So where we have this Nine of Wands showing up, you might try coming across as a little less defensive. You might try opening up more about yourself emotionally, telling people more about yourself, and not being as distant emotionally. Here in the future, we have the Five of Wands in the reverse. And the Five of Wands is a card about competition and rivalry. So you can see that all of these figures are dressed very similarly, and they're equipped very similarly also. We do have this idea up here in the clouds. This could be the face of a fair maiden. We also have this skull kind of emitting from the volcano in the distance. So when people are competing with each other like this, they are all striving to become the best version of themselves that is possible, given the training available. All of these people right now are very much at the same level. By the time we get to the Six and the Seven of Wands, one of these competitors will have risen above the rest through practice, and will then be a possible target for the others to bring back down to size. So this card showing up in the reverse in the future, where you're very guarded right now, you might see a lot of people around you as competitors, possibly even competitors for friendships or for the affection of another person. But I think in the future that's not going to be as much of a contributing factor for you. You're not going to be thinking about these things in terms of competition and rivalry. You'll be thinking about them more in terms of camaraderie. So where we have the number 5, that has to do with 5th house energies. And actually, the astrological sign of Leo is the ruler of the 5th house. So what could also be going on here is that this 5 of Wands situation is cropping up because depending on this person's Leo placement, they might have some of these Leo traits that could make you feel insecure in certain situations. They might be boisterous. They might be very popular. They might make friends very easily, just to give some examples. That is, of course, not totally across the board for all people who have astrological placements in Leo, but it could be part of what's going on here. And as you get to know this person better, you might realize that you're not really in competition with them, that because you are emotionally bonded to them, that they are mutually invested in you in a way that is not competitive, but is instead supportive and enriching. So now we're going to look at your hopes and fears. And Cancer, your hopes and fears has to do with the 3 of Wands. You're hoping that things that you have put out into the world will be returning to you. We have several birds off in the distance, and then we have this one owl kind of in the foreground that seems to be returning to this person who's standing before us. They're back to us. We also see this ship in the background. And even in this day and age, shipping by sea is a very risky proposition. Things don't always make it, or it can take a very long time. So this 3 of Wands, you could have put a lot of energy into some different situations over the years, and you're really hoping that in this particular case, perhaps, that energy will come back to you, or that other projects or other things that you might have started with other people in the past will be coming to fruition. And it's interesting because we have a few wands lined up here. Down here, from another person's perspective, we have the 9 of Wands, which of course would be threefold 3 of Wands. So hopefully it's not anxieties that you've put out into the world returning to you threefold. We also have this 5 of Wands in the future, the 3 of Wands, and then 2 Wands added. And the 2 of Wands is a card about planning. So maybe there's room here for some planning as well. So let's move on and talk about the card here in the midheaven. Remember that the foundation this is built upon is related to this choice that you are given in the current situation. Oh, I just noticed her little alligator shoes. That's so cool. Now I know what I want for my birthday. A pair of shoes that look like alligators. And here in the midheaven, we have another very Cancerian card with the Knight of Cups. This is fire of water energy. We can see the saddle here is kind of this skull that is partially defleshed. But then we also see that, at the horn of the saddle that some of the face is intact. It's a very interesting design. The Knight of Cups could be a water sign person. It's a person who is listening strongly with their heart and with their gut, and not as much with logic, with the logical mind. Now, this can be good in some situations. And the Knight of Cups can also mean that emotions are coming towards you. So it could be a new person coming towards you. It could be a new friendship, a new relationship coming towards you. And that's going to be based on this choice that you've made. But both of these cards are upright. And remember what I said about the Two of Swords, that both of these choices could be fairly equitable, that they'll have different outcomes, but that both of the outcomes have the potential to be very good. And also with this Knight of Cups, that it could be, no matter which one of these choices you make, this new relationship or new friendship could be coming into your life. But how it looks is going to depend on that choice. And the final outcome for you, Cancer, in your reading this week, we have the Knight of Wands. And this Knight of Wands is fire of fire energy. So very much like an elemental fire energy. We have these pyramids in the background, creative power. The Knight of Wands can be a lot of energy burning, very hot. And where we see this card showing up in the reverse, in the final outcome, there is a warning there about trying to burn the candle at both ends, or trying to push yourself and your energy levels harder than what you actually need to be doing in order to be effective. So this is showing up in the diagonal to this Nine of Wands, actually, which is other people's perspectives of you. So maybe there's a lot of energy that you're putting into thinking about what other people might be thinking about you. And perhaps this energy would be better utilized in other areas of your life. All right, so that is going to conclude the Cancer reading for today. And I will remind you that after this reading is over, I'm going to go and do some crystal scrying over on the members side of the channel. So if that interests you, you're cordially invited. But your presence here on the channel is greatly appreciated, no matter what form it takes. So next, I will be reading for the sign of Scorpio. And this could be whatever Scorpio placement you would like to know about. Oftentimes people will watch their big three, which is sun, moon, or rising. But sometimes I like to watch my North Node is in Gemini. Sometimes I like to watch Gemini. Depending on career is 10th house, right? So based on your rising sign, you might figure out where your midheaven is or where your 10th house is in relation to the astrological signs. And you might want to watch that reading also. But it's really up to you. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Jeez. Okay. Okay. So let me write down your timestamp before I start running my mouth about this reading. Pretty much right on the halfway mark. Okay. So first of all, Scorpio, I kept saying, wow, 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 because we have so many major arcana cards in your reading this week. We only have 2 cards and they're the cards that are in the places of your perspective and outside perspectives. Those are the only two cards in your reading this week, Scorpio, that are minor arcana. All the rest of these are major arcana cards. So I don't know what Pisces is going to get, because that's a lot of major arcana cards already pulled out of the deck. But that's not important for you, and that's not important right now. Let's start here in the past. It's good to see you, Maria. Thank you for coming. So here in the past, we have the Devil. And this card is showing up upright for you, Scorpio. So there might have been something that came up for you recently. It could have been past addictions. It could have been compulsions from your past. It could have been something that was triggering for you. Maybe not necessarily triggering toward an addiction, but something that maybe brought up past trauma. The Devil can also be illness. So you could have had a recent illness, and it would have been kind of serious. Or maybe that you just don't get ill very often. So when you do, it's kind of a big deal. Because the Devil is a major arcana card, and therefore, when we have these major arcana cards coming out, there's typically like a lot more going on in your life, and it has a tendency to be like more life-changing stuff. So that card being in the upright in the past, it could be very recent, it could be very fresh. Here in the current situation, we have the Sun card and the World card. So the Sun card is in the place of the significator, and the World card is the crossing card energy. Now, remember that the World card does have the 4 fixed signs depicted in the corners of the card. And of course, Scorpio shows up here in the form of the eagle. Let's talk about the Sun card first. So the Sun card is always a good card to get in a reading. And especially where we have the Devil in the recent past, the Sun card showing up here could show that even though there was some difficulty here in the recent past that you might still be dealing with in some capacity, that everything is going very well. Very well indeed. We have some depiction perhaps of the sun god here, Mithras or Apollo or whatever you like to call the sun god, riding this white steed. We have this row, this tree line way in the background on this card, as opposed to some of the other cards having mountains. So like here on the Devil card, we actually have this volcano, and sometimes mountains can show difficulty that needs to be overcome. So seeing this in the background instead shows that that difficulty will be more easily surpassed or surmounted, and that you're going in a very good direction. Now, the World card is fixed sign energy. It's earth energy, Saturnian energy. It's a very slow moving, very established energy, and is at the very end of the major arcana cycle. Now, the World card can be about completions. It can be about things being established and solidified. to the extent that they are now made concrete in the physical plane. And so the Sun card and the World card together could be about you doing something like that, getting something fully established for yourself that is going to help you to surmount this difficulty with the Devil card. So down in the MMC lie, and of course the MMC lie is going to be a lot of the origins and foundations upon which the goal or destiny that we'll be looking at in the midheaven, what that is built upon. And down here in the MMC lie, we do have the Magician card, and this card is showing up in the reverse. So the Magician is somebody who has great capacity for manifestation, and we can see that in the form of this wand, this creative power that they hold in their hand. They also have this infinity symbol on the hat, and they have an additional wand often on the altar here with the other minor arcana, the tools that a magician would use, the pentacle, the chalice, the athame, and the wand, right? But here this card is showing up in the reverse. And it could be that in the current situation, Scorpio, you are working very hard to manifest something, that you are really, really trying to push for something in particular. And because we have so many major arcana cards coming out in your reading this week, Scorpio, I do think that there's something very specific that you want. And we'll go into this when we look at your perspective on the situation, which is the next card that we'll be looking at. We'll also look at that when we look at your hopes and fears. But of course, you probably know better than I do what that very specific thing is. And I see that it has not manifested yet in the current situation, but that you have been pushing very hard for this thing, maybe even to the point where you are making yourself sick or delusional. So in your perspective, we have the Ace of Cups reversed. You could be wanting a new relationship to come into your life, and it hasn't been manifesting. You could even feel like you no longer have a very strong connection to your higher power, or that you have kind of lost your sense of self, which for a Scorpio just seems very strange. But I think everybody goes through that at some point or another, right? And of course, it depends on where your Scorpio placement is. But this Ace of Cups is very much about our emotional self. And so this could be trying to seek out new relationships and not really finding the people that you want to connect with. The Ace of Cups in the reverse here could, of course, be about wanting to have a romantic relationship, and can also be about feeling loss of sense of self. And it's interesting that we have these two things showing up together, such that this might be what you're working very hard to manifest and feel a bit frustrated with. So the next card we'll be looking at is from an outside perspective, looking in on your situation. What do other people see? And what other people see is this Two of Wands in the reverse. Now, the Two of Wands is about planning. You see this person is holding a globe, so it can be about looking at a map, charting a journey, whether that is a journey through a process, a physical journey to a different place. And people from the outside looking in on your situation might not see you doing proper planning. They might not think that you are putting in the work that it requires to plan what you are going to do and follow through with it. Um, but of course, that might not even be the case. You could be putting in a lot of work into planning, but just not showing that to people. And especially because we do have the World card coming out, I do think it's very likely that whatever it is that you are working towards, you have placed a very strong foundation uh, to ensure that you give yourself the best opportunity to succeed in that area. Here in the future, we have the Tower card in the reverse. Now, the Tower card, this could be crisis averted. That perhaps because of planning that you did, or because of the work that you're putting into this manifestation currently with the Magician, um, that you are actually going to avert some kind of crisis. Um, Now, sometimes things show up in the reverse in the future because they haven't happened yet. But part of that can be that the situations are not in place for this to occur. And so, where we have a destructive card like the Tower, that's why I say it could be even like a very close call. But it could also be something that you never even notice. Because if bad things don't happen, then you don't realize that that was even a threat to begin with. So that could be, this very good situation and this strong foundation in the current environment um, are going to provide a very good environment for you to be putting your best into whatever manifestation, even if you're not really seeing the payoff of that yet. And even if other people around you can't really see the work that you're putting into this, that's really what I get more out of this. Because the Magician in the reverse also could be like that you're not putting in the work. But in this case, and especially because Scorpio energy tends to be a very occult, meaning secretive energy, a very hidden energy, very much about like keeping uh paying no attention to the man behind the curtain kind of thing. So, here in your hopes and fears, we have the Star card in the reverse. And this has a few implications, one of which is that you are afraid that your hopes and fears are going to remain unfulfilled. The Star card is also Aquarius, fellow fixed sign Aquarius's card within the major arcana. And so, of course, we're tying in some of those 11th house concepts as well, which have to do with social groups, perhaps social media, and perhaps, especially because we have this Ace of Cups coming out in your perspective, that you're afraid you're not going to meet the groups of people that you wish to connect with. Now, the next two cards that we have, I beg your pardon, excuse me. The next two cards that we have are Major Arcana, and they're both upright. The midheaven position, so because of all of this manifestation work that you've been putting in to the current situation, Scorpio, we have in the midheaven the Judgment card. So there will be some kind of reckoning. It's not important for the people around you to be able to see all the energy and work that you put in, because the universal order, source, God, whatever you believe is watching over our mundane affairs, is paying attention. And there will be perhaps some kind of test associated with this that you will pass. Judgment Day, the rapture, is a kind of an equalizing event, right? It's not based on how much money you have. It's certainly not based on how many donations you made to that guy who shows up on TV and tells you that Jesus recommended that you give him money. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the relationship to the higher power that you have. So even though this is showing up as a group event, it's still very much like this kind of feeling of being abandoned. This is going to be reconciled eventually. And you see that it will be. The Judgment card is associated with fire sign energy, but it's also associated with your ruling planet of Pluto. So, very much about the transformative properties of fire. Oh, hi, Ultra Embodied Reiki. Thank you for coming. And I appreciate your friend recommending my channel. It's nice to meet you. So now the final outcome for you, Scorpio. I really hate ending readings on this card, so I might pull a clarifier or two on this. Because it is the Moon card coming out in the final outcome. We have the two dogs, the feral and the tame. On this one, we have these kind of churches in the background. Oh, I'm not sure. Always slightly sleepy. Another ASMR channel. I'll make sure to check out some of both of your videos. I do love ASMR, and I love the ASMR Reiki community and the Reiki community at large on here as well. Oh, good. Yes, I'll be doing Pisces in a moment. But the moon is about these very unclear paths. The shellfish, it's kind of like a lobster, probably, or a crayfish. A lot of times the shellfish will molt in the new moon period because they are hidden under the cover of darkness. So sometimes there's actually a correlation between the shedding cycles of shellfish and the moon for safety. And that could be the pointer here, Scorpio, that now I specifically have a moon in Scorpio, so I'm going to be paying attention to these cycles. And you want to be able to use those cycles, especially when you're doing your spell work and your manifestation to your benefit. But also that that things will be a bit unclear for a while longer, and that's okay. because there's going to be some kind of crisis that's averted. And there's also going to be a reckoning of some kind. And the Judgment card is different from the Justice card in some very key ways. So, Justice is based on, what is fair, what is equitable. Sorry, I got a little tongue tied there. But the Judgment is based more on your performance, your actions, and is more like an evaluation than a judicial case. So it does look very good moving forward for you, Scorpio.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate your generosity. That means a lot to me.
So now we're going to move on to the sign of Pisces. And I'm going to shuffle your cards just a little bit. And Pisces, if you'd like, you can go ahead and set your intention for the reading. And just allow any of the concerns that you have, you'd like to address, to float up into the forefront of your thoughts. Just wait there gently. If you find these things stressful, I invite you to breathe through that energy. So as you inhale, draw in the divine light of Source. And then as you exhale, you just release any of that stress or tension or discomfort right back to Source. And it will be transmuted. Okay. Interesting. Very interesting.
So let me write down your timestamp.
Okay.
Just taking some notes.
So Pisces.
Sorry, I'm going to take a drink for a minute. I love Dr. Pepper. I love it so much.
Let's start in the past, Pisces. And we have a few court cards here for you today. One of which is the Knight of Swords, showing up in the past and in the upright. So you could be going through an evaluation process, Pisces, such that you are categorizing things. Maybe you are weeding through your wardrobe or weeding through paperwork, and you're putting things in a pile to shred and putting things in a pile to keep or, donate to charity or something like that. Perhaps just throwing some things away. The Knight of Swords also can be as we see these scales up here, involved in these ideas of social justice. So you could have gotten very involved recently, in the recent past, in a social justice cause. That would be a somewhat Piscean thing to do. And there are plenty of things that have come up recently. Excuse me. It's the Dr. Pepper. That have certainly warranted people having opinions and working to promote their cause. We seem to be dealing with that on a rotating basis, I think. But this could be something that is currently relevant to you. It's showing up in the past, but it is in the upright. Here in the current situation, in the place of the significator, we have this Queen of Pentacles, Pisces. Now, this is a very grounded energy. It is water of earth. So it's possible that some of you Pisceans also have earth energy in your chart that would be very grounding and would help you to not be so overtaken by that mutable water energy associated with Pisces. Queen of Pentacles is fertile proliferation of resources. And often you'll see a little rabbit down here in the corner of the Queen of Pentacles, sometimes by her feet, or sometimes it'll be carved into her throne. And that represents the water covering the earth and allowing the plants to grow, that process. So this could also potentially be a pregnancy card, but is really going to have more to do with the kind of wealth that accumulates over time, perhaps through investment or staying at a really good job and getting promotions and raises through that, or being an entrepreneur. The Queen of Pentacles is definitely entrepreneurial energy as well. Now, this is crossed by the oh, that's very interesting. Yes, that's interesting indeed, because we're just now getting to the Eight of Cups as the crossing card. So the Eight of Cups is crossing the significator. And this, of course, is a card about abandoning a project that was almost complete. It can be leaving a place. The Eight of Cups is more about the leaving than it is about the journey itself. We don't really see where this person is going. We can see some either mountains or waves in the background. It could be either of them, really. And that kind of adds to the lack of clarity with the Eight of Cups regarding the destination. We do have a good full moon here for the person to make their way by. They are leaving at night as well, perhaps under the cover of night. And something very interesting about this card is that the artist has drawn as kind of the foot of this, they're using this bone, this very long bone, as a cane. And at the bottom, it has a skeletal foot. So there's a lot of mobility depicted on this card. And the Eight of Cups, you don't really know where you're headed, but you know that you cannot continue to do what it is that you have been doing. And this really goes along with this Knight of Swords energy as well, that you're in a process of clarification And that Knight of Swords can be a very binary type of discernment that you're using. Should I stay or should I go? Now, down in the MMCLI,
so that's going to be down below the significators, all the origins and foundations in the current situation that are going to be contributing what occurs up here in the midheaven with the goal or destiny.
So down in the MMCLI, we do have the Two of Pentacles. This can be things equalizing in one's life, but it can also be about business partnerships and reciprocity of resources. So the Two of Cups is reciprocity of emotion. Excuse me. The Two of Swords has more to do with the ideas. So you could consider it a reciprocity of ideas in some ways. The Two of Wands being that planning process and walking through the portal. But these passive twos in the deck, so the Water and the Pentacles, can both be about partnerships.
Oh, wow, that's really interesting. And I understand it can be very frustrating to be interacting with people outside of the more energetically enlightened circles, not to place those of us in that area above anyone else. But there's more of a thinking about things in terms of the whole in more complete ways. And of course, you always really want to help those people to see a better way.
So this could be about a potential business partnership. We also have this this boat in the background is kind of sinking. So we have one boat that's upright, but perhaps this boat was not loaded properly and became too heavy on one side and started to sink. So that's something to think about also. From your perspective on the current situation, we do have the Hanged Man in the reverse. And the Hanged Man can be about self-sacrifice and burdens and feeling stuck. And where we see it showing up in the reverse like this, and especially from your perspective, you are refusing to remain stuck in a certain situation. And we definitely see that here with that Eight of Cups, that you're walking away from something. So from the outside looking in, we have another card that's really strongly reinforcing this as an ending, which is the Eight of Wands. And the Eight of Wands, of course, is about endings. This is kind of tied up in a nice bow. So whereas the Death card or the Tower card or the Ten of Swords all have the potential to be kind of messy or to be painful. With the Eight of Wands, we're seeing something where a contract comes to an end and is not renewed, but everything is all tied up in a nice little bow. There's closure, and people might wish that it didn't have to end, but it's not a particularly painful ending, and it's something that potentially could be picked up at another time because of that. There's no burnt bridges with that one. Here in the future, we do have the Four of Pentacles. And the Four of Pentacles is about conserving your resources. So this could be about saving, and especially because here in the current situation, we do have that Queen of Pentacles. So you do have good financial resources around you in the current situation. And in the future, you might just want to make sure that you're conserving your resources, whether that is your money or even potentially your energy, because sometimes the reason you have to leave is because you're having to give too much of your energy to things that are not returning a good dividend to you. And here in the hopes and fears, we do have the Six of Pentacles. So this is kind of reinforcing this idea that we have with the Four of Pentacles. We do see concern here about debt, about having to receive charity, having to ask for charity, concern that more will be going out than comes back in. But this is in the hopes and fears. And sometimes it does require expenditure of money and resources to get into a better position from which you will be able to move that much further along. Now, up here in the midheaven, we have the Death card. And this is going to be based on what was happening here with the Two of Pentacles. So I do see a certain amount of things being balanced. We have that Knight of Swords, making these binary type decisions. And then the Two of Pentacles bringing things into balance, perhaps also regarding like business partnerships and things like that. So this death, this transformation, could be regarding finances. It could be a positive transformation coming after this balance is achieved. But of course, it's in the upright, it's in the midheaven. It is showing that things will change. And of course, because from your perspective, you are refusing to remain stuck any longer, then transition from the 12, the Hanged Man, into the 13 and the Death card is inevitable. Your final outcome here, Pisces, is the Queen of Cups in the reverse. I love her little shoes. They look like little puppy heads. That is so cool. Now, the Queen of Cups can be somebody who is very emotionally nurturing of others, but remains very concealed in her own feelings and emotional states. So always checking up on other people, but then, if anybody checks up on them, they're like, I'm fine, even if they're not. And there's a certain amount of emotional manipulation to that. So I would think that the warning here for you, Pisces, would be to avoid martyring yourself in the interest of caring for others, and understanding where your good boundaries are and what your good boundaries are going to be. And that's going to help you with this Four of Pentacles and retaining the resources that you're going to need for yourself, holding on to those things. And there will be a change coming. Now, it is a general reading, so it could be different for a lot of you what that change ends up being. But I do think that wherever you are right now, as far as this evaluation process, it's going to be the natural outcome of that process. So it'll probably be a transformation into that life that you desire, that you're working towards. And that's why a lot of these cards are showing up upright, is that you see clearly what is going on around you.
All right, Pisces, that is going to conclude your reading for this week. Thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone for joining me today. I will be headed now over to the member side of the channel to do the crystal scrying. If that interests you, you are cordially invited. But your presence here on the channel is greatly appreciated in whatever form it takes. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all of you joining me here in the live stream. For all of you who watch the videos later, your likes, shares, subscribes, donations, etc. are so greatly appreciated. Greatly, greatly, greatly. And I look forward to seeing you again. Oh, I think the memberships are only like $5 a month right now. And you get a crystal scrying for each of the elemental energies. So Monday through Thursday, there's a new video typically, except for the weeks that I've taken off. You should be able to just click on the join button next to the subscribe button. Oh no, that's fine. I really appreciate your support. And I look forward to seeing you again. Very, very